What is going on, guys? Blink here, back with a new guide. I'll be talking about the right things to do when fighting with low materials. Also, the V-Bucks giveaway is still going on, so make sure to visit the link in the description to enter. And lastly, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications as I post an Amazon gift card code in the comments every time I upload. By turning on notifications, you'll have a way better chance of getting here first and redeeming that code. Anyways, guys, let's get this guide started. The new vending machines are out, and they're super sweet, trading materials for cool weapons, and that might come with consequences if you're not careful. You might get caught up with low materials, and you have to fight your way through. So I made this guide because it might start coming in handy for some of you. I'll show you guys the best ways to defend yourself with low to no materials. So in this situation, me and my teammate had very low materials, and we were getting shot close to a mountain and by Dusty Depot. We knew we had to get out as soon as possible because once you run out of materials, you're basically dead if you have no cover around you. If there was a house close by that was away from my opponents, then I would have built towards it, but we were around open land. Sometimes if you have almost no materials, then you might just have to use the last bit to get away. So make sure to use it to build cover from behind as you run away. If you see more trees up ahead, then make sure you gather more wood for the getaway. Now, we had bad weapons, no meds, and no materials. If we had meds and good weapons, we probably could have went back to fight after gathering about 300 to 400 wood, but we unfortunately didn't, and the circle was still massive, so resetting was fine. We were actually able to find shields and a bunch of good weapons in Salty Springs. This saved us from the disaster we were in, and we ended up winning the game because we made a smart choice. The chances of you surviving with no materials is super low. I've said it 50 times. I'd rather have a pistol with materials than have the best weapons in the game and no materials. Now, if you're getting pushed, you probably won't be able to get away. So the first thing you'll want to do is try to shoot your opponent and see if you can put some damage on him before he gets too close. This is super useful to do in any situation. When your opponent isn't that close, you can put shots towards the materials they build, because I've explained this in one of my other videos about the material HP, which I'll quickly summarize. So every material starts at a low HP before it gets fully built. When it's being built, it's weak, and when you shoot fresh materials that are being built, you can destroy it easier and usually squeeze in some bullets towards your opponent and take some health off. I do this even if I have materials. If you can spot a one staircase support or any newly built structure, then shoot it out and keep shooting it to get some damage off as he tries to rebuild. It's a great way to have the upper edge on your opponent before a build off happens. So as you guys see, I was able to take off most of my opponent's shield before they even got close. Once your opponent gets close, you'll need to use the cover from the materials around you to avoid getting shot. Next, you want to try to shoot out the weak points and see if you can drop your opponent to the ground to be able to shoot him without cover. Now, sometimes your opponent might actually jump out like mine did. The reason for this is usually because she knows I'm trying to break the material she's on. So her response would be to get lower, which is the right response. But the mistake she made was peeking me without cover, which exposed her whole body. And I was able to pull out my shotgun to get a critical hit on her. Also, make sure to utilize the peeking advantage like I did, as it's super important to get a more accurate shot. Overall, your objective is to analyze easier shots you can take when your opponent's exposed, or to get your opponent on your level for more of a fair fight. So what I mean by getting your opponent on the same level, if you get him down to your level, he will still have materials, but if he peeks you, then you have a chance to take a close range shotgun shot. Let's continue the guide because another opponent ends up pushing me right after the fight. So the same steps apply. Try to take a few shots, and if you have few materials left, then use them wisely. My opponent tried building above me, and a simple staircase blocked him from any of that. And once again, I use the materials around me for cover. You can still see I have a little bit of brick and metal, but I use it wisely because I might need it if I get snuck up on. And another reason I'm holding on to the last bit of materials is if I see my opponent directly in front of me, then having enough for a wall and some stairs might just be all you need. You might focus on shooting your wall and the stair down, and that's when you want to peek out, because you'll then have to readjust his crosshair, and you might be able to kill him as he does it. If he builds up again, then you repeat the steps I already explained on the last player I killed, which was shooting down their materials to get them onto your level or to drop them for some fall damage. Overall, you're in a disadvantage. This is why it's so important to gather materials as early as you can. Now, that's not always the case. The situations I've shown you are what can happen if you don't care for materials or you use the vending machine at the wrong time. But in these situations, I was gathering as much as I could, and I still ended up running out. You might be early in the game and gather enough for a fight, but once more players start coming in, that's when it can get hectic when you get shot from multiple angles. You will start to burn way more materials as you have to protect yourself. And with the second scenario, I had around 750 materials in this clip, which is more than enough to fight a player off. But when you start getting into intense building wars, which is what happened to me, then you'll burn up materials fairly quickly, and by the end of the fight, your opponent won't have anything left either. I gathered just over 50 materials from my opponent, which isn't much at all. Now, to avoid fighting in a low material state, one more tip I can give you guys is to jump pad away. This isn't always possible because not everyone's gonna come across a jump pad when they have low materials, but if you do have one, use it and get out of the disaster you're in. Also, if you have a C4, you can place it on top of the jump pad, and after you get away, blow it up to avoid your opponent from following you. Well, that's it for this guide, guys. Some parts of this guide were much harder to create because I'm usually able to regather materials fairly quickly, but that might change with the new vending machine update and if I'm not careful. But the tips I explained will be the best best tips to utilize if you're in any of these situations. So that's it, guys. Hope you have enjoyed this guide, and I hope you guys never get into these situations because they absolutely suck. But if you do, well, you guys know what to do. So if you have enjoyed this guide, then a like and a sub would be greatly appreciated, as it does help me out a ton. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day or night, and I'll see you on the next one.